The beginning of January 1945. The sun is just rising, but you can hear voices outside of your window. Suddenly, a series of blasts interrupt your calm dream sleep. White mushrooms of towering smoke explode to the sky, and you could feel the crumbling of structures and the massive impact they have on the water below. Flaming pillars of dust follow the smoke. The air is full of shrieks and the moans of the injured. The streets are pierced with shouts of soldiers' commands, gunshots and explosions. For a few moments, the ground is shaking. You can't understand what has happened and rush outside. And then you see, there no longer is a link to the other side of your home city. Let's take a closer look and zoom right in onto these bridges and the events which happened to them. This is Szabadsághíd, which translates to Liberty Bridge. So, the Liberty Bridge was the first bridge to be rebuilt after being destroyed by the Nazi troops by the end of World War II. It was originally built in 1896, and after it was destroyed, it was rebuilt in 1945. It was named Ferenc József híd, Franz Joseph Bridge. The bridge was built between 1894 and 1896 by the plans of János Feketeházy. The bridge itself imitates the general outline of a chain-type bridge, which was considered an aesthetically preferable form at the time of construction. The Elizabeth Bridge, named after Elizabeth of Bavaria, a popular queen and empress of Austro-Hungary, who was assassinated in 1898, was built from 1897 to 1903, but was the only bridge which people were not able to rebuild into its original form after the retreating Germans destroyed it in an attempt to escape the Soviets. All the bridges we will talk about were destroyed by the retreating Wehrmacht sappers. Wehrmacht, translated from German, means defense power or armed forces, and sappers are combat engineers, also known as pioneers. So Wehrmacht sappers means something like German army combat engineers. Therefore, between 1961 and 1964, a new but greatly simplified Elizabeth Bridge was built in its place. It is the third newest bridge of Budapest. Today, the bridge you see is not the actual Elizabeth Bridge, but just a similar, but still beautiful replica. In fact, until 1926, the bridge was the largest chain-type bridge in the world. The Széchenyi Chain Bridge is named after István Széchenyi, a huge supporter of the bridge's construction. This old architectural structure was opened in 1849 and was the first permanent bridge across the Danube in Hungary. It is surrounded by many places you should go to, including the Buda Castle and the Gresham Palace. During the time when it was built, the bridge was considered one of the modern world's engineering wonders. After World War II and after being blown up, only the towers remained, but everything else was successfully rebuilt, and the bridge was reopened by 1949. The lines on each side of the entrances were carved out with a single piece of stone by a sculptor called János Marsalko. There's a myth that the sculptor of the lions forgot to add tongues to them and was murdered by the people who ordered these sculptures. Do you think this is true? After taking Budapest in early 1945 and finding out that all of Budapest bridges were blown up, except for Árpád, which was still under construction, the Soviet Red Army was obligated to construct a temporary pontoon or floating bridge. This bridge was to be used for mainly military logistical purposes. It proved to be highly insufficient due to its small capacity, and during the presence of winter ice packs, it was an extremely difficult task to maintain a connection between the two sides of the Duna River. And what was the Soviets' response? They built a spar-type bridge in record time. They used up many oil fields of Zala country, but managed to accomplish this project and erect this narrow bridge. But this bridge was mainly used for pedestrian crossing. It is thought that this bridge was built solely by Soviet troops, and there were 15 fatalities due to rush and poor working conditions. This assumption is incorrect, though. The bridge was named after Lajos Kossuth, the patriot leader of Hungary's 1848-49 revolution. It stood over the Danube from 15th of January 1946 to 1960, and most of these rough years it was called the Link of Life. And actually it was one, since it was the only link between the two sides of the 290-meter wide river. It was located at the southern corner of Budapest's Parliament building. After all the other bridges were reconstructed, the Kossuth Bridge became a maintenance problem, and its low span an obstacle to ships. After being finally shut down in 1957, it was demolished in 1960, and nowadays only two plaques rest on either side of the Danube, where the bridge stood, reminding visitors of the pride of the nation, and leaving them filled with memories of their family. Thanks for watching. This was Alex, and see you next time.